What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's showtime, and it is TheBlaziking. And today, kids, we're going to teach you how to play the Dynamax Adventures. Because if anybody ever comes by my stream, they'll probably hear me complaining a lot about, what are you people doing? You're such, and you're such. And I'm going to try to leave the actual insults out of this video because I want to list this as for kids, since I know a lot of the people that watch my channel for some reason or the other are around the age of like 13, so gotta try and keep it at least a little PG, right? So, to start, before I go over the details, the first thing you want to do is when you enter a Dynamax adventure, after you select your first Pokemon out of the 3 choices they give you, because that is the only time you can be allowed to do something wrong, at least if you don't know what you're fighting, is look at the type that you're fighting and think, what Pokemon could be at the end and what would be good for it? Now, I will start and say there are a lot of nuances with, not every Pokemon leading up to the legendary is as good as it should be. Like Seismitoad only having a poison type move as far as being super effective to anything, or Pukamu being absolute trash. But then again, there are other things like, Sudowoodo has ground and fighting type moves, as well as its stab rock type move. Or Wartortle has ice and fighting type moves as well as its water type move. Things like this you pick up along the way as you play. So, I understand, not catching everything, but going against the grain and just going the complete wrong path, that's the kind of thing that will frustrate people and get the giant ban hammer. So, I'm going to go a little bit more in-depth with things, because I want to try and help the community. And hopefully I can help somebody out by making this video that I've meant to do for a few months, but apparently this situation is just getting worse with people. Probably all the little kids getting Sword and Shield in the DLC for Christmas a couple months ago or something. But we'll just go down the list of all the Pokemon, or at least by type, and, explain what can you do to be good against that Pokemon. So, since Mewtwo is right here at the tippy top, I'll start with Psychic types. Mewtwo, or any base Psychic type like Azelf, Mesprit, and Uxie, are all weak to Bug, Dark, and Ghost. If it's a fear of the human mind, Psychic is weak to it. And now that we covered, your basic Psychic type stuff, if you ever see Psychic at the end of your pathway, I'm going to continue on and say Lugia. Because you could also see Flying as that, and since it doesn't show you the silhouette of the last mon, Lugia is always a thing to keep in mind for Psychic or Flying types. Which, Lugia is not weak to Bug, but it is still weak to Dark and Ghost, as well as Rock, Ice, and Electric types. Thing to keep in mind. Then we keep going a little further down. Latios and Latias. Also Psychic types that could show up, so you gotta keep that in mind. And to tag along with that, every time you catch a Dynamax Pokemon, it could still show up. Or, every time you keep one anyway. It could still show up, but it has less of a chance to show up than it normally would if you hadn't kept it yet. But as for Latios and Latias, they're still weak to Bug, Dark, and Ghost. But in addition, they are also weak to Dragon, Ice, and Fairy. Which, 6 different weaknesses, not too hard to cover, Then we keep going a little bit down past the Pixies, because I already explained those. Cresselia, same thing, base Psychic type, so it's not like you need anything different but the several things I already mentioned. Tapu Lele is weak to... Actually, I think out of the basic psychic type weaknesses, it's only weak to ghost, but it's a fairy, so it's also weak to poison and steel. Speaking of steel, you have Solgaleo, who isn't weak to bug anymore, but is still weak to dark, ghost, and now fire and ground types. Okay, next in the psychic type list, you got Lunala, who is ×4 strong, or ×4 weak to dark and ghost types, because it's a psychic ghost type, and, well, that's how weaknesses stack, right? So Lunala is extremely weak to dark and ghost, and actually I really have nothing else to say about that. Those are really the only two types that are actually good against it, because it's not weak to bug anymore because it has that ghost typing, and nothing else is strong against ghost but ghost and dark. Necrozma, another base psychic type, so remember the rules about Mewtwo, the Pixies, and Cresselia. I may as well take the Cantonian birds for this as well, which are electric, fire, and ice flying types, all of which are weak to rock. Moltres is also weak to water, and Articuno is also weak to fire and steel. So those are things to keep in mind for those things. You have the legendary cats, Raikou, Entei, and Suicune, who are... Raikou is weak to ground, nothing else. So if you see electric type, keep in mind, might be a Raikou. There are a couple of other base electric types, such as... Scrolly scroll. Well, since I'm on the way there, I guess I'll mention Thundurus is another electric type that could be there, who is weak to rock and ice as well. Actually, it's not weak to ground anymore, it's just weak to rock and ice. Then you have Zekrom, still weak to ground, I think. Also weak to fairy, ice, and dragon. I could be wrong. Actually, let me double check about that. I don't want to steer you guys in the wrong direction, because this is supposed to be a tutorial video of sorts, so don't really want to, mess with people, do I? Yes, it is still weak to ground. Okay. Yeah, I almost slipped up a little bit there myself. Tapu Koko, still weak to ground, also weak to poison and steel. Xurkitree is another one of those base electric types like Raikou, so its only weakness is ground. Then you branch off with Entei. Other fire types include Ho-Oh, which, just like Moltres, is weak to rock and water. You have the pain that made me want to make this video, Heatran. Now, keep in mind, kids, anytime you run into Heatran, a Pokemon with a 4 times weakness, no matter what other move you have, if you have access to ground, use it. Unless it's a Palpitoad, Marshtomp, or Swampert, in which case you also have access to water. So if it is your turn to Dynamax, do so, set up the rain, and then go into your ground type moves. This also works for things that have both moves, even if it's not double stab, like Politoed. It has Earth Power and Scald, and it activates the rain when it comes out anyway. So those are things to keep in mind. But always work on your 4 times effectiveness. Otherwise, it's weak to water and fighting types. Scrolling back and forth is probably the worst part of this. I should have made like a notepad for all this, but hey, whatever. Blacephalon is another fire type that could come up. Weak to ghost, dark, water, ground, and rock. All very easy to get typings, so just pay attention to what you're grabbing, and it should be no problem at all. Suicune, the very first Pokemon you run across in the Dynamax Adventures. If you didn't keep it foolishly like I did the very first time, and you send back for it, and you don't know what its weaknesses are for some reason or the other, this thing has existed for 20 years. It's weak to grass and electric types. Same with Kyogre, who is a Hoenn legendary and a lot bulkier than Suicune, honestly. Another water type that could come up is Palkia, who isn't weak to electric or grass and only weak to fairy and dragon, I believe. Let me double check that. Dragon, fairy, yes. No, that's not the Dynamax Adventures. I almost stomped on that thing. Tapu Fini, weak to electric, grass, poison, and steel. You know, a lot of types that aren't that hard to come across. At least I don't think so. None of the Ultra Beasts are. I explained, and again, I'm explaining these typings as I go, so, you know, pretty much just flash forward back to what I had already said about a Pokemon, because I'm just scrolling past Lugia and Ho-Oh, who I've already covered. I'm scrolling past Latios and Latias, who I already covered. Kyogre, who I already covered. Groudon. The ground types are probably the worst Pokemon to fight in these Dynamax adventures, in my opinion. Because Groudon is weak to ice, water, grass. However, it has the ability Drought, so unless you're going to bring a Pokemon like Politoed or Pelipper that can use Drizzle, you might have a bad time with a water type. Other ground types would include Landorus, who is weak to ice and water. Ice being 4 times effective, though, so if you have a choice between the two, grab it. And the literal worst ground type you could come across, Zygarde, to which is only weak to ice as well. So, actually, no. At least Landorus is weak to water as well, but Zygarde is literally weak to only ice. So, grab as many Ice Mons as you can for Zygarde. Bring Wide Guard if you're going for it, and good luck to you, mate. Next, we're covering the Dragon Flying type Rayquaza, who is weak to. Come on, I've said typings enough. I bet you can collect this by now. Comment below if you can before I say it. Ice is its main weakness, similar to Landorus because it's 4 times weak. Followed by Fairy and Dragon. It no longer has the electric, or actually I think it is still weak to Rock. It no longer has the electric type weakness though because Dragon resists. Other dragon types who I have not covered yet include Dialga, who could pop up and is weak to ground. I think that's it. I think only ground? Oh, it's also weak to fighting. Alright. Dialga's weak to ground and fighting, so if you happen upon that path and you keep it and you go for it further, you know, or you're like in somebody's stream and you see they're hunting Dialga and you want to help out, go ground and fighting, and it will help immensely and not irritate anybody. Another dragon type would be Giratina, you know, the Lord of Hell, who is weak to Fairy, Dragon, Ice, and Dark, and Ghost. Yeah, those things. There is no 4 times weakness on Giratina, sadly, but I mean, at least covering over the bases of the moves that it'll be weak to will help in the long run, and that is why I'm doing this. Another dragon type I have not covered yet, although I should have when I covered the fire types, is Reshiram, who is weak to ground, dragon, rock? I think ground, dragon, and rock. Yes. See, this is also a little memory quiz for myself, so I remember these things. Kyurem is another pretty hard boss. Its weaknesses are rock, fighting, and dragon. It loses the ice weakness. Oh, and fairy. Loses the ice weakness because it's an ice type itself. And another, just like with Zygarde, Wide Guard is a really good move to have for this thing. So Mineshaw, Pelipper, Hitmonlee, these are good things to have. I covered Zygarde. I covered part of the Tapus. Guzzlord is another dragon type Pokemon who can also come up as the dark typing. ×4 weak to fairy. Also weak to fighting, ice, and dragon. Scrolling. Oh, right. Somehow I skipped over other... Oh, wait, no, I haven't skipped over other Gen 5. Edit? Yeah, apparently I did skip over other Gen 5 legendaries. Because Tornadus is a pure flying type, which I think I've explained already what flying is weak to. You know, rock, ice, and electric. Maybe I did go over him already. I don't know. I also know he's kind of a pain, but I don't know if Wide Guard is useful for him, but just keep the type advantages in mind and he'll be solid. Other flying types include Yveltal, which is weak to fairy and electric, ice, and rock. Other flying types include Celesteela, steel flying type, which is weak to fire and weak to electricity too, or just fire. I think it loses the electric weakness when yeah, because it has a steel type. Oh no, it is still weak to electric. Okay, yeah. Celesteela weak to fire and electric. I think I already went over Thundurus. If I didn't, it's weak to rock and ice because it has the electric typing on it. Xerneas, pure fairy type, weak to. I've gone over this with the Tapus. I know you can do this. That's right. Poison and steel types. Just like the last Tapu I haven't covered yet, Tapu Bulu is ×4 weak to poison because it is also a half grass type. Seems I'm getting into the nitty gritty of just the Ultra Beasts. Cool. Nihilgo is one of 2 rock type legends and the only poison type legendary who will actually come up in Dynamax Adventures. ×4 weak to ground, weak to water, and fighting as well. And I think it's still weak to psychic? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's still weak to psychic. So ground is obviously your primary. Take the rest of the typings as you will. And your other rock type that might pop up is Stakataka. Also ×4 weak to ground, ×4 weak to fighting, and still has that pesky water weakness. Buzzwole and Pheromosa, both bug fighting types. The only bug fighting legendaries on either side that you will come up to. ×4 weak to flying, weak to fire, and I believe fairy still. Let me double check on that, but I'm pretty sure they are still weak to fairy. That would be correct. Kartana is a grass steel type, ×4 weak to fire. Otherwise, I think it has a fighting type weakness, and I think the ground type weakness is cut off. Yes. So fire, fighting type would be your best bet for Kartana. And that is about what wraps up for the legendary Pokemon. So, hopefully this helped out. I know I was kind of long-winded and went back and forth and skipped over some minor details. And, well, I didn't really skip over minor details. I went through what every legendary Pokemon is weak to. So if you're helping somebody else out, or you see the typing but you're unsure what to use, you can just keep this video in mind, think what legend goes to what type, and try to guesstimate what you're doing there. I know it takes a while to get used to what moves all the Pokemon along the way have. You know, because it took me long enough to remember that, hey, Seismitoad, completely useless unless I'm facing a fairy type. For example, Toxtricity doesn't have a poison type move, even though it'll come up in the poison type category, only as electric type moves. Things like this you need to just try to remember. You know, I know that's probably hard for some of the younger people because the brains are still developing and stuff. And no, I don't mean for that to be insulting. Okay, well, maybe a little bit, but if that came across as that, I do apologize. But I'm honestly doing this to try and help people, to save people like me a headache when they're running Dynamax adventures with random people. Because, my lord, the past 2.5 hours I just streamed just. Uh, I have such a headache. And all because of people that don't adhere to the things I just went over. And it's fine to go for a challenge or to not know what you're doing at first. You know, that's fine and all, but if you just completely go against the grain and ignore the obvious, then you can be introduced to the hammer as far as I am concerned. But I do hope somebody can take this information, keep it in mind, and improve with their Pokemon knowledge, at least for Dynamax Adventures, even if it doesn't help, like, competitively, if you guys are ever into doing that kind of thing. I was going to do it at some point as a video a few months back, could have told, but that never got underway. But, yeah. I wish everyone the best in their shiny luck and in the Dynamax Adventures. Just like I hope I can get done with this stupid Heatran raid as of the time I'm recording this. And until next time, been TheBlaziking. Signing out. Ta-ta for now. Reminding you to like, follow, sub to both channels. And ta-ta for now. Peace.